Okay, well, it says I'm live, so I don't know where Kevin and Jennifer went. I thought they'd wait for me there on Facebook so I could let them know, but apparently they've gone off the grid on me.
I think we got it. Hello?
Hello, hold on, bear with me just a second. There you are. Okay. Uh, yeah, we're live now.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
Finally got it working.
I don't know what the world was going on. I just kept fiddling with stuff, and I don't really know how I done anything. But I even rebooted. But it is, instead of showing me, it's showing my little skeleton guy up there. But I'm assuming that y'all are seeing me, right?
No, we see your little skeleton guy.
Oh, you see the little skeleton guy too. Um, Now, to the best of my knowledge, this is the same exact links to where we are. So hopefully everybody got them. Uh, I got a Skype call from CJ telling me that they didn't have a link to go to the chat room, so I just put that back out for them. Hopefully, some people will be over there listening and talking and whatever. I can't see them, but anyway, sorry about the technical problems, everybody. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio coming to you live on YouTube. And my guest tonight is Kevin Malek, and hopefully, Jennifer, I'll pronounce your last name right. Scelsi.
No, it's Scelsi.
Scelsi?
Yeah, the C is silent. It
Oh,
sounds like
okay. I'm sorry. Okay, Scelsi. I'm sorry. Uh, the trouble we went to, y'all, to bring you this information, you got to love it because we are devoted people. Um, I wanted to kind of let you guys give a little lowdown of who you are and what you're about, and then we'll kind of get into the topics that we're going to talk about.
Um, I'm Kevin Malek. I'm a paranormal historian, pathologist, and founder of the Paranormal. I'm also a co-host on Paraverse, running a radio show on Paranormal Radio Network, and a co-writer along with Jennifer, Supernatural Magazine. And of course, we're involved in other affiliates that do with our society.
My name is Jennifer Scelsi. I am a psychic medium, paranormal investigator, and criminologist. I am the medium for Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. I am the Wisconsin State Director for CSI Paranormal, and I am affiliated with Civilian Warriors of St. Michael, and I also write for Supernatural Magazine.
Awesome.
I'm a co-host.
And I'm a co-host on Paraversal Universe Radio.
Yes, that's the show that we do.
Okay, we have some. Do I sound jarbled to you?
No, you sound fine.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are coming across kind of jarbled. I don't know what's going on with that.
That's weird.
I I don't know. But anyway,
Well, would it make a difference?
No. I might.
okay, you guys are not on the phone, are you?
No.
No. We're
Okay. Well, it may be that because you're on the same mic, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. You might want to, if you don't mind, just kind of get where both of you are a little closer to that mic because I think that's what's going on.
Is it just that you can't hear us loud enough?
You sounded fine then.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, yeah.
Hold on a sec.
That's what I think it was. Is your the distance and it's going whatever. Anyway, um, the topics that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to let Kevin introduce this topic because I never heard of it before he told me about it. But it's really some interesting stuff, and I read some articles that he has and everything, and it makes a whole lot of sense. So if you don't mind, kind of tell everybody what the name of the how do I put this? It's a to me, it's like a new part of the parafield because I'm not aware of it. So
Well, it's basically it's the idea. Neurocryptozoology is the idea that these animals that we can't seem to track down have supernatural powers or abilities that humans don't possess. It's just the idea of that. And cryptozoology is basically, this is the way I see it, uh, neutral perspective. You have the one side which is cryptozoology. It's very similar to zoology. And there's no paranormal element in activity. Um, anytime there's reports of Bigfoot vanishing, um, disappearing, smoking, or reports of Bigfoot and UFOs close by, they just ignore it. And then the other half, of course, is more open-minded, and they're willing to look at the more bizarre findings. Well, anytime I noticed that there's like many times different psychozoologists will bring up the idea of, you know, is it possible that the reason we can't find these animals is because and of course maybe get shot down, maybe uh, right of it. And I guess I decided I wrote an article about it in the magazine. The idea of cryptozoology and its character, where the two sides lie. Me, the shifting faction. In other words, cryptozoology, the old school cryptozoologists, really want to keep things the way that it is. You know? They don't want to get involved and as long as there isn't a character quality, some kind of reports will always bring. My figure is just have to, I mean, the support we've gotten from the character quality, like me, uh, like,
Yeah.
uh, people definitely. The thing is, well, I'll probably get ahead of myself. So, anyways, we got the the additional technology, and I thought, there should be a new discipline. Just like we have psychology and we have parasites, we have sociology, we have parasites. Well, we're talking about cryptids that can manipulate ability. That's there's nothing paranormal. And so I think there's there's this, know, I think it was for years and years and years. I think I decided more traditional cryptozoology. And it wasn't until like the last 5 or 6 years that with the invention of uh, for equipment protection, just the correlate now that you got cryptozoology building, although the idea is there.
I really like the piece in the article where you were explaining about like having two camps, and the camp over here sees it this way, and the camp over here sees it that way, because that's really a lot of the way it is in the paranormal field as well. And you got your let's just use orbs for example. You got your orb believers in this pile, and you got your non-orb believers in this pile. And I'm not one to say that orbs can't exist. I'm just saying I need better proof than what I've seen. You know, um,
Right.
you have sort of the same thing there going on. You have your group that they all believe like Bigfoot and Dogman and all that stuff. Is like a just a very well hidden creature that's hard to find. And then you have the group on the other side that believes that they have ways of transversing, like maybe between universes, even and stuff like that. Or not universe, but well, yeah, like a parallel. You know,
Well, with the looking at the era of cryptozoology, you're right. Like, first camp believes that these animals are just incredibly well hidden. There's nothing supernatural going on with them. They're just, you know, the best hiders ever. My thing over, and I remember when I was getting at before, is in the last 5 or 6 years, with all the groups that are investigating now, all the people, all the track cameras, and I understand a lot of paraphysiologists, ones I know, will even call themselves such, will say, a lot of these track cameras won't work because the things that infrared triggers like they put her on. But I also know that there's ultraviolet cameras, and regular, any kind of camera, different kinds of cameras. Thousands, and we're still not getting any solid evidence. Drone. You can fly over a whole forest now and visit and night vision and thermal. We have all this technology we have today. You could have an increasing really not. But yet the reports keep coming in, and they're not just a few reports. We're talking like over 100,000 reports in Bigfoot. I'm sure it's more than that. So I started to ask myself, well, what's going on here? You know, the other thing about this is that some of the cryptozoologists that are out there doing the field work, they're saying, I'm buying the fastest cameras that no one can buy. And they malfunction if they would not. Or sometimes they'll get 24, on their trail cam or YouTube, or they'll get like, just like the lightning kind of phenomenon, just like we always in the regular psychology. All different kinds of phenomena. Just weird anomalies. Nothing like a Bigfoot scan when you're looking at the camera holding the apple, Um, but there's so between all this stuff, I started to, I think the people that I don't think it is that, that the animals may have something. What's going on? There's different hypotheses.
okay. And from the chat room over there, they're saying they can't hear a word you're saying.
Well, I'm gonna be off camera then. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you. Let me see. Let me double check if they're hearing you over there.
Sure, I know.
Okay, speak to them. Let me see what they say here.
Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me all right? Test one, two. Yes, no?
Okay, I'm waiting for somebody to answer. I'm not sure
Hello?
what's going on here.
Do we have?
Uh, anyway, I hear you better. I don't know about them. You was really jarbled, and like I said,
I'm sorry about that.
okay. She just answered me. She said that's better. Okay, good deal.
So,
So
yeah,
yeah, you're gonna have to work it that way.
no problem. I just won't be in the cameras
That's okay. I mean, just
much.
long as we can understand and
Right.
everything. Anyway.
Okay, so
Uh,
I'm sorry.
yeah. So now back up like a few words there so that we can.
Okay, what I was just saying was, oh, now I can hear an echo.
Okay, if you have that chat room playing over there,
No, we don't.
We
it
don't.
will echo.
I just
You
had,
have
I just
to,
had pictures of my face for a minute. I just moved them. This should be okay.
okay, because I had to go turn it off because it was reverbing on me. But anyway,
Okay, let me try this again. What I was saying was between all the technology we have today, the cameras and the drones and the manpower of people that are actually doing research now compared to years before, that coupled with the anomalies that they're catching on the equipment, the stuff they are catching, doesn't seem to be zoological. It seems to be paranormal. And they can't get solid the bait disappears, but they can't. They're not. Yeah, sometimes it's other creatures and they can see that, but sometimes the bait disappears and they can't tell what's taking it. They can't
yeah,
get the kill. So I feel, as being on the fence, I'm like, that's pretty strong stuff. Okay, the reports are flooding in, and I myself am a Bigfoot witness. So I wholeheartedly, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, know that this creature is real.
I like what you said about the like the trail cams and stuff. You
Right.
know, they're trying to capture pictures of Bigfoot and Dogman and what have you. But they capture anomalies that they aren't expecting to capture, and they don't know what to make of that. They can't really count it as cryptozoology because it doesn't fit.
Right. The thing with cryptozoology, it will always be, many in cryptozoology do want to see it become a regular science, taught in universities, just like zoology. But as long as you have any science that deals with the unknown, there are unknown factors or elements that can't be measured by science, um, it's going to remain what they call pseudoscience, which I hate because it's I don't know. I prefer. To me, they're all the same. They're all legitimate fields of study, you know. But be that as it may, uh, there are a lot of things going on, and then there are other elements too, which like Jenny can talk about a little bit. Um, as far as like Jersey Devil and Mothman,
Yeah,
some of these cryptids display almost demonic.
Right, and especially when it comes to the Jersey Devil and the Mothman, people are still having reports to this day of the Jersey Devil. The problem is it's only one creature. It doesn't have like a family of them.
right.
Like with like a Bigfoot or
Right.
they have at least like they'll have like the male, the female, they'll have the juvenile. When it comes to the Jersey Devil and you hear all these descriptions, it looks and it sounds like it's demonic.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you, Jennifer, real quick, since we're talking about the Jersey Devil.
Okay.
The Jersey Devil, unlike the Mothman, has a story behind it.
Yes.
Okay, the mother and all
Yeah.
that. But where did the Mothman thing come from? Because there's no story for it. There's nothing to say. Well, this is how it happened. This is where it came from. You know,
mean,
Whether it be myth or legend or fact or whatever, there's nothing for it.
nobody, see, that's what gets me. Through all these years of research, nobody really knows where Mothman came from. There are theories out there that there is some kind of bunkers up there.
Right. Now, I did see a video on that recently.
And they claim that he hides out in these bunkers.
The old military bunkers.
Yes, the old military bunkers. Nobody really has any idea of where or how the Mothman came about. He just happened to just be here. There's no logical explanation.
Well, do you think that he is a lot of people believe that he, comes to give warnings of disaster and stuff like that? Or do you think that he is like demonic or evil?
Actually, it's kind of a double-edged sword because on one end of it, he acts and he has all the demonic qualities to him. But, you talk about the whole interdimensional messenger aspect of it. He only shows up right before major disasters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Almost like a harbinger.
Right, like a harbinger of doom. No one's seen him before or after.
Okay, so you got to ask yourself now, is he the cause of the disaster or is he a warning for the disaster?
I personally have always felt that he was warning against the disaster.
I mean, because if he actually has demonic traits, then you could see him causing a disaster instead of, warning against one.
Right, like if he has demonic traits, like he would have been over there, for all we know, on top of the bridge or underneath of it, like collapsing it himself. You don't see that. It's different with the Jersey Devil because you have the old myth, the old legend, and it was
right.
She had 12 children, and when she found out she was pregnant, she wished that this one would turn into the devil. And so the story goes from this, and I grew up around the northern New Jersey, so I used to go looking for this thing.
The Pine Barrens, yeah.
And after about maybe 5 minutes of the baby coming out, it was completely normal. And then 5 minutes later, it started like the hooves, the horse's head, the horns, and it ripped apart everybody in the cabin and then just flew out to the Pine Barrens.
Okay, see, I never heard the part about it ripping everybody apart. Just that, basically that it was born and it had the hooves and horns and it flew up through the chimney or something and disappeared into the night,
Oh, yeah. He actually he killed everybody in that cabin and just flew out of the chimney. And he's been in the Pine Barrens ever since. And the difference with him and Mothman, they have a week. It's the first week of January. They call it phenomenal. And it was between the 1940s, and I can't remember where it ended. He would make appearances and literally terrorize people outside of their homes, people in trolley cars. People would find footprints in the snow on roofs. So many people reported seeing him, and he would actually cause harm, and he would go after people. Whereas you don't have that with Mothman.
Right.
Right, but okay, so he terrorized a couple of people, Mothman, but I'm not saying, what I'm saying is he didn't go to the extent that the person
Okay, well, see, I've never heard of Mothman terrorizing anybody, so you're going to have to fill me in on that.
Okay, well, my view of the Mothman, first, let's back it up. I wanted to say that one of the theories on the Mothman, too, is that it was created by the government. And that
I kind of think I remember hearing that too.
It escaped from the lab. So there's that mythology angle on it. But yeah, one of the most famous Mothman accounts is of 4 high schoolers riding in a car in 1969 when it was the late 60s at this.
That's the video that I just watched recently.
Right, and that's really the first time the Mothman as the Mothman, as we call it, that has come into play. Now, if you look back throughout antiquity and different reports of what demons look like, that's where there's similarities. I mean, obviously, this creature, and with the red glowing eyes, and it can fly, and it's just enough to. We don't know for sure, but you can't discount some of these theories. And of course, Mothman is kind of a more considered a cryptid than anything else. But Mothman and Jersey Devil both, because they're not ever seen in family packs. They're not, they're people don't see more than one. These kind of things, coupled with what I just said, lead some people to think that there is, what's going on with this. Basically, there's different angles. Again, is this a creature just hiding out that we can't get a grip on? If there were a whole species of them, I would think that we would have documented it by now. Again, they got a lot of trap cams in pine barrens too. So it's weird. Maybe I always thought, well, what if they're like fallen angels or something?
Right. Well,
I'm not saying they are. I'm saying it's a possibility.
And then I just remembered this one. Before 9/11, the 9/11 happened, people took photos of what they claim this figure looks like it could be Mothman flying near the towers right before the first plane hit. I think the local newspaper even did an article on it. You can find it on Google Images. If you type in Mothman 9/11.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. And like with the Mothman, there are other sightings that are considered Mothman-like. Wisconsin had a couple sightings where the creature was described. What were they calling it? Bat Squatch.
Bat Squatch.
And like in England, they have the Owl Man, which is.
Have you ever heard of the Goat Man?
And there's another one. Maybe this is like some kind of manifestation of some kind of fallen angel, or who knows what. I mean, again, or like there's so many theories. Does it escape from science? Is this? I personally, when you talk about the when you look at the really ancient histories, there's some fantastic stuff in there. Is this a byproduct of some of that? Who knows? We're not getting any bodies. We're getting very few pictures. Most things we get are the reports, though. And, working in a paranormal society, I can say the people that do come to us seem very genuine. I mean, it's not often that we get somebody that we just think is totally full of crap. I mean, it does happen, but, because people won't, it's been my experience, people won't go out of their way to contact a paranormal society unless it's a problem or issue at some kind of psychological level.
Right.
And, so opposed to, like with ufology and cryptozoology, a lot of times it's just the reports where I saw it, and this is where I saw it at. So all you can do is basically ask 100 questions, take down all the information, and catalog it. And now we got some, the BFRO, and so many other groups out there are cataloging stuff. And a lot of these reports do have some weirdness in it. I saw strange lights when I saw Bigfoot. I saw a Bigfoot get pulled right out of the ground by another Bigfoot. I saw a Bigfoot disappear while he was walking. I saw a Bigfoot enter a portal. Right, I know that all of them aren't legit. I get that people are, will, hoax and whatnot. You see that a lot, but it doesn't explain all the accounts. And even if 5 or 10% of the accounts are even if 1% is genuine and accurate, 100%, there's something going on with it. Something that we need to figure out. I think that there are people in the world that do know what's going on with a lot of this stuff. This is the privy information or information that we're not privy to, either by secret societies or governments. But that's the personal view I have.
90% of it, everybody claims that it's government involved anyway. That some kind of experiment they did that went crazy, or the creature escaped, or
sorry,
the creature escaped, or something like that. Like with the Mothman thing, and when you mentioned that, it made me think, well, maybe that's why it supposedly hangs out at these bunkers, because maybe that's where they had him and he escaped at.
And that's a possibility. I do know that the military was all over the place, and when the military presence left, the sightings stopped. So who knows?
And
Find what they were looking for.
when the sightings
Well, at
showed
least
up again, he shows up around those bunkers. You know,
yeah, and it's so weird. I mean, there's like about the other ones, like the ones in Wisconsin where people describe something very similar, or like I said, the owl man in England they have, where again it's something very similar, and like they could almost be brothers or whatever. I mean, you know, but
well, I was asking you earlier.
you know,
I was asking you if you'd heard of the Goat Man because I watched a video recently, and it's supposed to be like in the Appalachian Mountains or something. Um, a huge white creature, like Bigfoot, but with a goat head, and it's white and
sure.
really like shaggy.
Well, I've heard about it. I know
Okay,
different
I wa-
authors have written about it.
yeah, and I thought that was interesting, even though it's a little far fetched. And you probably say, "Really, a goat man? Come on!" But you've got Dog Man, you got Moth Man, you got Jersey Devil. Why can't you have a Goat Man?
Why not? They have a gargoyle too,
Yeah, and a sheep squatch.
and a sheep
Sheep
squatch.
Squatch. That was it. Sheep Squatch, not Goat Man. Sheep Squatch.
Well, there is a goat man, too.
Okay, well, I was watching the video. It was about the sheep squatch, is what it was.
And again, maybe these things are I don't think they're described identically, but you know, uh, yeah, these unique cryptid reports where you only see one and you don't get and they're centralized are really intriguing. Where are these things hiding out? What caused it? What created it? Why is it there? And why are people seeing it? Like, of course, there's a thing in cryptozoology called zoophore, and some cryptozoologists believe that, or I should say, so there's parapsychologists too that some of them believe that these are figments of our imagination, like when we see something like a Bigfoot being pulled out of the ground, or just even seeing a Bigfoot for that matter. Let's even without the whole para aspect. But I don't subscribe to that because most of the human population lives in urban areas, and we don't usually get cryptid reports in urban areas. So I can rule that out. In other words, if it were something a product of the human imagination in general, then people in the city should be seeing these things too, and they're not. Only deep out in the woods and whatnot. I mean, sometimes they'll come into close to town, or they'll see them at the dump, or down a power line stretch or something. But
Well, with the Jersey Devil, one of the encounters of Phenomenal Week, he went to a city in New Jersey, like in the middle of like a busy, heavy traffic area with like trolleys full of people,
yeah,
and like attacked a trolley pretty much. So
yeah, it was cited by a lot of people. Some of them older reports. How the news journalists, especially back then, how they would blow stuff up a little bit to make it more favorable or exciting to read. But I still think the report of whole, I forget how many people. There's a whole group of people.
there's so many people. He was seeing from New Jersey to New York to Pennsylvania, all the way down to Maryland and Delaware, and then all the way back up to upstate New York. So he was in that 1 week. He was all over the place.
I think there's a book written about the Jersey Devil just in Maryland area.
The book I have it's not up here yet, has all the places he's been.
Well, possible anywhere around the Jersey area. I wouldn't assume that if there, is such a creature, it's just going to stay in one spot. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get around, and especially if its design was to warn of disasters or whatever. Why couldn't it warn of disasters in the neighboring states, or or around, outside of the Jersey area, or the area where it belongs?
Right. Well, these people were just terrorized by it. Period. Like he just like would go after. He would try and attack people. I think he got a hold of a couple of people's house pets, if I remember. Another theory is because people see him from back then up until now, and he always looks different. So, if he is demonic, who's to say that he might or might not have some kind of shape shifting thing going on? People see him with a kangaroo head, or people see him with the horse's head. He's got like the horns, he's got bat wings, he's got hooves, he's got like kangaroo legs. It varies.
Right.
You talk to one person and get one account, and talk to a group, and that's how you different versions of him.
One thing I noticed too about the classic drawing of the Jersey Devil, like the one that everyone kind of sees in their head. If you look at that sketch, and then you look at some of the pictures of the old demons, and some of them demon candemoniums or whatever, the books,
Right.
You swear you could this was something right out of that. I mean, it's like I say, so I can see why there's a para element to that, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, and the other thing I wanted to touch on was the different hypotheses, the different things that could be going on with some of this stuff. I think, one cryptid we haven't brought up yet is the Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
Some people feel that some of these Loch Ness Monster sightings are like ghosts of dinosaurs.
Now, that's a thought I never thought of before.
Is that what's going on? I would say probably no, not in most circumstances. Is it?
No, but you got to admit it went a whole new edge of excitement to the Loch Ness Monster thing.
Well, it's just again, people trying to figure out what, who, why, that kind of thing, and are we seeing what some of these cryptid reports are they? I think like the Loch Ness Monster ones are like Champ or Ogopogo. Odds are they're probably flesh and blood, but I do believe in residual hauntings.
Oh yeah.
I do believe that they can go back a long ways. Who's to say they couldn't go back far enough that at one time the energy of one animal was strong enough that it, for whatever reason, it was able to manifest.
Well,
in our time, just for whether it realized it was or not, it could just be a replay of the past. But
if you take into consideration that most people in the paranormal field think that limestone and quartz and all that stuff holds energy like a recording.
Right.
So if you had, let's just say, T-Rex and another dinosaur fighting, and they're in around this kind of stuff, and it's a real horrific, rip tearing, kind of deal. Why couldn't it be recorded in that?
And that's it. There's not many, but some cryptids will catalog like dinosaur reports from around the world, things that sound like a dinosaur. And again, I gotta, I'm not saying that people are making this stuff up, but until people are reporting packs of them, or we can get more information, maybe some more to go on. They're very, it's not common. It's uncommon, in the paranormal, which is really uncommon in general. So, but anyways, that's one hypothesis. Another one is that, when we're talking about like dogmen and Bigfoot, creatures like that it could be some kind of interdimensional, opposed to terrestrial. Like, for whatever reason, it will manifest in our dimension for short periods of time. obviously I mean, they do go after the bait. I think this is one thing that everyone kind of agrees on. There's something going on with the bait. The bait piles are drawing some kind of activity. People have seen Bigfoot's eating. You know,
Right.
like so. I mean, who knows what's going on? I mean, I know that sometimes it might sound a little far-fetched, but what we're trying to do is just think outside the box, apply paranormal science to this, and see if we can come up with any answers. You know, another hypothesis is that, and this one I like the interdimensional one better than I like the extraterrestrial one. And there's two versions of that. The one is the ancient alien twist on it, which is that aliens were here a long time ago, and they created the Bigfoot to be some kind of slaves. And then
Somebody brought up a thing to me one time, and I wholeheartedly say that that would have to be me. When I see Bigfoot coming out of a spaceship, then I'll buy that.
Right. So, there's that, and then the newer one, of course, is that they're actually, powering some of these ships, or like there are, and I tell you, in ufology, there are between you can find different books on different species, that the governments have cataloged. Of course, these aren't. They're some would call them ambiguous, but some of them are actually really well done. And this isn't just from America. This is from the Russian. I know the Russians have a book too. It's got I want to say 67 different species that they believe the Russian government cataloged.
Well, you can't believe that the United States government is the only ones who experiment with creatures and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, right. It's a global thing because it's all tied into their religion, the whole Freemason thing. That's what I get out of it. I mean, not to inject that into all this. Oh my God, right?
Yeah, that'd be a whole different topic for a whole nother night.
But yeah. So I guess what I'm saying though is I do believe in life out there. I do believe that we're not the only ones.
Oh yeah.
Math doesn't lie, people. Do the math. We're not alone. Okay. For whatever reasons, for a long time we've been conditioned to think that we are alone, and we're not. And so, is it possible that some of these species may look like Chewbacca, which would look like a Bigfoot? Well, hey, I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't bet my life that there isn't a species out there that's really hairy, that's bipedal and humanoid, kind of like us. I'm sure the human, the head, the 2 arms, 2 legs, is probably a common theme throughout the universe. I mean, not totally common, but if it happened here, it probably happened somewhere else too.
So, what do you think about it? And we've talked about different types of creatures and stuff. The Egyptians back in the day, and I've heard the story of the gods came down and they experimented with humans and animals and put animal heads on human bodies and all this kind of stuff. And supposedly, the Egyptians built these big crypts, and they killed these animals and they put them in there where they could never escape again because they were dangerous and all this kind of stuff. Now, I know this is probably way out there, but I mean, I do watch a lot of this stuff and read about this stuff, and some of it kind of is a little bit believable.
Well, if you look at the Bible, Genesis talks about the Nephilim, and there were fallen angels that came down to earth and mated with the daughters of the earth,
right?
Because they thought they were pretty, and they created these offspring,
giants and all that. Yeah.
Which also were said to do these giants weren't stupid. In fact, they say that these giants were smarter than the average person, and that some of these, and to us, I call that a demigod myself. I mean,
well, that's what they were considered as.
So they have the ability to manipulate and perverse God's creation as well. So when you see stuff like Anubis, like you're talking about the Egyptian, and
Showback, reptilian.
and Toth with the I do know, and it's when I've talked before about dogmen and different kinds and types of werewolves and dogmen and skinwalkers, and if you go back, and I mean that kind of history you can trace all the way back to the time of Egypt, and all throughout the history people have been encountering uh, upright dog-headed things. Let's just say that. Okay, whether it's a werewolf, whether it's a dogman, whether it's a skinwalker, whether it's some urethral hellhound or something, people are encountering it. I uh, I think that the stuff that we find in ancient pyramids that has to do with their religion, I think a lot of it is extraterrestrial. Um, like there are extraterrestrial undertones in it, I should say. Um, and to me, that seemed extraterrestrial. To others, they may just seem theological. Uh, but when you study, when you're talking about, okay, like we were saying before, what was Nebus? Nebus was supposed to be a demigod. What if he had children and they
Right.
were more, who's to say? I do believe that some of these demigods are real because they're found in other places, in other parts of history, aside from the Bible. The Bible, I think, is the greatest history book.
Right.
Sometimes I like to see personally, like other stuff collaborate, you know. So when you look into the Bible, in fact, there are books that were pulled out of the Bible, like the Book of Giants, that actually talked about these demigods and demons messing and perversing with God's creations to come up with their own creations. So they were
Yes,
experimenting
that's what
with
I was saying.
biogenetics too, just like we are today. The stuff that's going on deep in the labs under the earth is hideous nightmare stuff. I mean, some of the experiments and the stuff they were trying, uh, it, are insane. Just some of the stuff I hear in ufology it just makes your skin crawl.
Right, well, it's inhumane.
It's inhumane. It's anti-human. It's just whatever. The whole their whole science, their whole belief system. I guess it's just.
Well, it didn't help that President Roosevelt signed a treaty with the Greys. As far as them getting us getting their technology, and then that involves them being able to abduct us anytime they want, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's the treaty.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so whether these cryptids are, of course, like some cryptids, for instance, like the chupacabra, okay, have been now discovered well enough. Their bodies now. Bodies help. Again, with Bigfoot, one camp says, well, they're smart enough they're going to bury their dead. And I respect that. These creatures do seem smart. In a lot of ways, are brothers.
That's kind of what I believe too. They would bury.
They're dead. And other people say no. Well, they're just extra, or they're interdimensional, so they're not going to leave behind anything. They're only here for short periods of time.
And they've gotten wise to us as far as trying to hunt them down. You can use every great piece of equipment under the sun, and if these things don't want to be found, they're not going to be found.
Well, my the only thing that really bothers me about them, like coming here interdimensionally and everything, and why? For what purpose would they come here interdimensionally, just to roam around in our forests and stuff and then go back?
I know. See, and that's the thing. That's like that's a good question. That's why I said before, like, it's weird that they eat, that they're drawn to food, but yet we can't get a picture of them. They only show up as weird anomalies sometimes, or something's going on. They're invisible, or why can't we get a picture of, come on, let's get a picture of one eating an apple or something,
Yeah, well, what do they come here for? I mean, I'm sure they don't just come here to eat an apple or to eat a deer or to eat whatever and then go back. Poop in the woods and go back. I'm sorry.
You know, I
You know
tell
what
you,
I mean?
I will say this to be fair and neutral. If cryptozoology can come out with evidence that will support their uh, the older school belief that these animals uh, are just hiding purely on there's nothing supernatural going on. If they can, then I will accept that because that would be the truth. If that's true, you know, um, and that's the other problem I've had is that cryptozoology has been around for a lot longer, and they still haven't come up with the solid answers to many things. And it's like I just feel like, well, if there are people, individuals out there that want to explore paracryptozoology, and there are people that actually go out and they do this. They go in the woods and they spend lots of times in the woods, and they're you know just like Roger, like us going ghost hunting. We spend a lot of time doing it. We know all about it. We have countless hours of field experience. Well, there's people out there that got countless hours of field experience, and all the evidence that they've been trying to gain. They think they got a good spot. They've had encounters before. They're going to try all these different things. They've tried it for over years. Just all they're getting are things that are giving them more questions than answers. So,
Exactly.
so I say, okay, is this okay at this point? Is it a coincidence that we just can't find these things? Or is it a bigger coincidence? I mean, or in other words, like to me, coincidence is rare. It's actually like a true coincidence is as rare as paranormal, my belief. So I think everything happens for a reason. So if you have a true coincidence that has nothing to do with each other, it usually doesn't happen. Um, I don't think when I see the coincidence that we got thousands of reports but no evidence. I mean, to me, that says that there's got to be some other number in the equation we're missing. And then you talk about, well, what would the government have to say about this? Well, if they knew about it, they would not want it to come out because it would mess with timber.
Exactly. Especially if they were involved in it.
Right? They may be involved with it. This may be something, our a concoction of from mankind thousands of years ago. For all we know, there may be nothing extraterrestrial about it. Although again, I just I don't know. I mean, again, like I stay on the fence and I kind of go back and forth, but what I'm trying to do is just look at all the different hypotheses and I want to see the people that are willing to put the time into it be able to do it without having like everybody in their field ridicule them and make fun of them. That's stupid.
Well, see, that's kind of the same way it is, and this um, in the paranormal field as far as ghost investigations and stuff go. You either got your people on one side that think they know everything, or you got your people on the other side that don't believe anything. And the ones that over here don't believe anything are laughing at you, and the ones that are over here that think they know everything are putting you down because they think you don't know anything.
It's like the old saying. We say this at the end of every show we do. To the believer, that the evidence is overwhelming. To the skeptic, there is never enough.
That's true. That is very true. You know, that's why I guess I don't care that much about the whole Paracon thing. You know, what do they have at Paracons? Para celebrities. What's a para celebrity? I put my pants on the same way I do, and I do the same thing they do. I'm just saying.
So I don't know. For me, it kind of goes like, okay, what if Bigfoots are interdimensional beings, and we have portals? We could have portals for all we know, and the government pretty much knows everything. So I'm sure that they're well aware of portals. And what I would like to know, if that's what it is where are they coming from? That they're crossing over from their dimension into ours to cross back out through portals.
Right. Is there a portal thing where they're traversing between two dimensions?
Well,
They're
our
just
government
smoking
probably
things.
has the ability to create those portals.
Well,
Or like you said, it could be cloaking.
it could be. I mean, maybe they're not going anywhere. They're just going invisible. They can bend light or do something, that to them is just second nature. See, the thing is, there's more than five senses. Okay? Some people, it's like, well, we only have five senses. It's like, well, there's more senses out there, but our body's only equipped to, basically measure five of them. And, like things like equilibrium, I consider a sense, the sense of, gravity. There's, I guess, like infrared, ultraviolet. Our eyes aren't equipped to see these things. We can only see 5% of everything out there that's available to see. Okay, according to the spectrum.
Okay, now I'm going to ask a stupid question.
Sure.
You ever watch Chronicles of Riddick?
I have, yes.
You know where his eyes have been scraped and everything, and he can see really good at night, but he can't stand the brightness.
Yes.
I wonder if something like that would actually be possible.
I don't know. Me and Kevin heard about something that was going out. You might have heard about it. It was circulated last year that I guess like the military are coming out with some kind of military grade contact lenses that you can actually wear and you can actually see like infrared and
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there a possible way that a human's eyes could be
Altered?
altered to where they could see the infrared spectrum?
That's a good question. Because again, like we wouldn't even know about ultra, or I should say, for most of what we're taught of mankind, didn't know even that ultraviolet or ultra infrared existed. Snakes have the pits, the infrared pits.
right.
If we would have been born with pits on our face, then we'd be able to see that too.
Yeah.
The thing is that there are things out there that we can't see, but we know are out there. Infrared and ultraviolet are just two of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many things out there that we have and we've just touched the surface.
Right. Dark matter, we can't even explain it. And it's how much percent of everything. So, there's just a lot of, there's a lot more out there. And it's kind of silly for us to think that, what we see and hear is all that there is. Because that's not true. I mean, even where we're at, it's not true. I mean, there's something going on down the street that I can't see or hear, but it's going on. It's happening. I just can't. Wasn't born with antennas to be able to pick it up and hear it. But yeah. So it's possible. The Bigfoot sighting I had, it was during daytime, and there was somebody with me, and we both saw the same thing, and so I know I wasn't hallucinating. We were both sober. It was daytime. It was bright out. It was the hottest day of the year, actually, and a Bigfoot crossed the highway right in front of us. And when my buddy stopped the car where it had crossed, and we looked in there expecting to either see a Bigfoot or something that we thought was a Bigfoot, there was nothing. It was gone. And I'm thinking, what, did it lie down? Or where is it? We should see it like stumbling through the underbrush. And it was just gone. And I can't explain it, but yet we saw it. And when we saw it, it wasn't like invisible, or it wasn't translucent, I should say, where it looked like it was kind of like a ghost would be, where you can kind of see through it. It didn't have that. Whatever crossed in front of us was real and solid. Yet we were up there seconds later and we couldn't see it. So either it climbed up a tree at lightning speed, or it dropped down on all fours and spread eagle, or it just kept going along in its own way and to move fast and I mean, I just where we were, we should have been able to see it. We were up on. I mean, we this all happened within moments, you know. So that was interesting. I didn't see anything paranormal happen, and I can rule out hoax. You know, it was so hot that day, and where we were, and there, like I said, I think it was 104 that day.
It was 104.
So, you know, I don't think anyone's playing hoax on that. Not Saturday morning, not where we were at, not how it happened. So we can rule out hallucination because we both saw the same thing. We can rule out a hoax.
Well, didn't you say that you guys looked at maps and were able to trace where it was going, and there was like a water source?
Yeah,
a source
my
somewhere?
thought was that this thing, because it was so hot, that it was suffering. Its life was actually in danger, and that it had chosen to go somewhere it normally wouldn't go during that time of day because it needed water. And I think that's why. I think we were just downwind. We came around a corner. You know, like, it wasn't a sharp corner, but it was a corner going 70 miles an hour down a county road. And the whole story is written up. It's on the Paracryptozoology like page on Facebook. You can go down and scroll through it, and you'll see a Bigfoot sighting in Wisconsin. That's the one that's mine. You can read through the whole thing and everything. But
So what about the you know, there's cases where people claim to have Bigfoot encounters, like going down a highway. I remember watching a video. It showed up in the road. These people went to a restaurant afterwards. They were talking about it. Other people were claiming that they ran into the same thing in the same area. You know, my dog's whining behind me back here. She's like, pet me. But, you know, do you think sometimes that they deliberately come out and scare people because they know they can? Maybe they're getting a jolly out of it. You know, I mean,
you know, that's a good question too. The Bigfoot don't seem
I'm sure they have a sense of humor in their own way, you know.
Sure. The Bigfoot reports overall aren't malicious.
Mm-mm.
It's not like shadow people where, you know, it's like, oh geez, they're so malicious. Dogmen reports are probably the most, I would say, scariest of all the cryptid. Like if you were to run into a cryptid, the one you don't want to run into is probably a dogman, because they are aggressive to people. I have a theory, and I kind of applied this to parapsychology, but this can also apply to paracryptozoology, and that is that there's a veil, and there are holes in the veil, and when, like, the veil is always circulating as the Earth is spinning or whatever, and that when there are holes, that basically sometimes, like, ghosts manifest when they don't even mean to, and like we can surprise them the same way we're surprised
Because the veil is thin at that point and they're just popping in.
Right, just for that minute or two, for whatever reason, there's a hole in the veil, and we can physically see through it and see them. They're there all the time, but we can't see them all the time, only when there's these holes in the veil. Well, what if that's true with Bigfoot too? He's just always doing his thing, but for once in a while, for whatever reason, the veil is lifted for a minute or two, and bam, we can see him, you know? And then bam, just like that, the veil, you know, because it's a moving thing, it moves on, and it's filled up again, and we can't see through it no more.
Well, look how they communicate with each other. You always hear more than one whenever they're talking. So for all we know, they could be talking about us, and we have no idea.
And that's, you know, the Bigfoot definitely have the family unit thing going for them. Like, it's not I don't think Bigfoot are demons. I would not,
No.
They, you know, I could see, like, maybe some Indian cultures would claim, like, if they were to see Bigfoots, they might refer to them as demons because they're just so hideous looking compared to a human. I don't know, but I don't think they're a demon. I think they're a breeding species. I just don't know that they're here in all the time. I'm not positive of that. And that's the only thing we're saying with this. And that's why I'm a proponent for paracryptozoology. There's nothing wrong with looking at the paranormal aspects of what's going on. And seeing that if there's, is there any different way we can investigate these? Some people will tell you there is. We had a paracryptozoologist on our show last year that had actually a lot of amazing stuff to talk about, and a couple photos that were really quite interesting too. And so there's people out there doing the work. I just think that, hey, if you're in the business of the unknown, anything, you should lay off other people that are also in the business of the unknown. Unknown means we don't know what the hell's going on,
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't. My whole thing with the article I wrote was just basically saying, if there's going to be such animosity between both camps, if they're going to be butting heads, because the second camp is growing more and more every day, bigger and bigger. It's getting bigger, and the first camp is, it's still there, but as the years go by, you might even see a shift, but if you separate the two disciplines, then cryptozoology could always remain as it is. You know what I'm saying? And paracryptozoology can also remain as it is. Maybe we could call it para-anthropology. Maybe that would be a better term for it. I don't know. But it's because we're talking about cryptids, the animals that cryptozoology generally investigates. That's why the name cryptozoology ended up in there. It's not parazoology. It's not even para-anthropology. Well, actually, it could be para-anthropology. But basically, everything we do is para-anthropology anyways. Whether we're talking about ghosts, spirits, demons, cryptids, aliens. So, yeah.
The idea of the two camps, two-sided thing, and everyone being able to each have their own view of things without stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the only thing is that it's just, I guess, like with the like page, it's just advocating, like we, as a paranormal historian, I look at everything that's paranormal, whether it's an anomaly flying around in the sky or a possession or, somebody sees an apparition or sees an animal that science hasn't, classified yet to everyone's satisfaction. It's just the unknown. And, I always felt like once you got into cryptozoology, like it was almost like you weren't allowed to talk about para, and if that's how it's going to be, then just separate the camps. And that way, no, what you're talking about is paracryptozoology instead of just cryptozoology, and hopefully, ultimately we just want answers. Whether the paracryptozoologists find them or the cryptozoologists find them, doesn't matter. Let's just get some answers.
Exactly. Well, that's same way. As far as the paranormal with me, I don't care who finds the answers. We're just looking for the answers.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter who finds them. Or if they call themselves a celebrity or whatever it is they call themselves. I don't care. I just want the answers.
Right.
I've seen stuff and I can't explain it. I want to know where it came from, why it was there.
After I had my Bigfoot experience was when I decided to contact a local paranormal society in my area. This happened, this happened before Y2K. And so it's a while back. And there were no groups in the area, paranormal groups. And I thought, man, that sucks. I think I want to start one. And so actually I had a couple other UFO experiences too in my early 20s, 3 main ones. So between them two, that was, but yeah, the Bigfoot was part of the catalyst, which got me to, start the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. So yeah, it was, like I said, definitely. So yeah, I believe in cryptids. I know these people when they're saying that they're seeing stuff, they are. I just can't figure out where these things are sleeping at night.
Really, if you could, if you knew, let's for instance here, if you knew, like, people when they get ready to set up their deer stands and all that stuff, they'll scout the areas and they'll look for where the deer are bedding at. If you could do that with the Bigfoot, you know what I'm saying? If you knew what a Bigfoot bedding area looked like, you know, you would know where to set up your trail cams and your what have you. You would know where to actually go, to try to capture live footage, what have you. You would know where to be.
Exactly.
And that's a funny thing because if you hadn't said what you did, I'd have never thought of that. But yeah, the similarities there. If you knew what you were looking for, not necessarily looking for Bigfoot himself, herself, whatever, but where Bigfoot himself, herself sleeps at night, or if they roam at night, where do they sleep in the daytime? And if they're sleeping in the daytime, it's going to be a well hidden place.
And that it's got to be a well hidden place. I mean, and the thing is, it would be. I mean, it's we. And the other thing is, for the amount of sightings we have, sometimes here's another thing: when they find tracks and they follow them and they just disappear.
Right.
What's up with that? So that's where I'm thinking, man, I don't know. That doesn't sound like something totally like I can't just disappear, Well,
so and
supernatural. It's
you remember the Russian team that disappeared on the hike in the mountains?
Yeah,
they found tracks that were going away and just disappeared.
Yeah, and that's a weird case too.
Yeah, and how they found them and everything. That was, who's going to leave? Who's going to cut themselves out of a tent from the inside and run off in their underwear in freezing sub-zero temperatures?
I know.
Nobody in their right mind.
Exactly.
Well, I think I think our government knows what's going on, and the governments of the world, the mortal powers that be.
Oh, they know a lot more than they're going to tell us. I promise you.
Oh yeah, the information they have would set us free on a lot of this stuff. It could confirm it. Like, yes, this is true. We know about it. This, and that. Oh, Bigfoots, yes, we know about them too. That this, and that. That's what we think's going on with them. But if we can capture Bigfoots, if there's any way possible to, I'm sure our government has done it by now. Or maybe they know what these things are and they just choose to avoid them at all costs. For all we know, just because for whatever reasons, maybe they can't control them, or who knows what.
And as far as disclosure, I could tell you what. The only way we're going to get disclosure is if we go looking for it ourselves. I don't think we'll ever get full-on disclosure.
No, because they spend so much money every year keeping things secret. The amount of money they spend on secrets, anything secret, keeping secrets.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Right.
The only way I see us ever finding out the real depth of all of that would be if we had some kind of catastrophe where all the people died and we were the only ones left and stumbled into one of their places.
Right.
Where you would have free roam to look at every cabinet, every, computer disk, what have you,
I don't know if that ever happens. I know one place I'd love to go explore. Area 51.
Yeah, everybody died. Let's go and explore Area 51. I want to see them flying saucers.
Well, I don't know if you heard what happened with that at Roswell last year. They actually tried to pay off the family to take their land over And then they wanted to pay him like $1 million or like $1 billion or
Oh,
something.
was it the land where the ship
It was-
crashed?
Yeah.
It was adjacent to Area 51. I
Yeah, it
thought
was adjacent to Area 51.
they wanted to expand their base,
and they wouldn't say why. And when the people that own the home, because the family that owned the home and the land for like generations, and they got threatened and they were forced to move out. But before they evicted them and kicked them out, they already started putting up fences and stuff on the property.
See,
Right.
that's what's going on today. That's going to cause an uprising. You know, people are getting fed up.
Yeah, people are starting to get sick of just being kept in the dark and lied to all the time. I mean, it gets old, and
Well,
I-
they're getting fed up with being roughshod by Uncle Sam too. You know, they want it, they just come take it. Oh well,
yeah, I mean, the people's faith in the government is at an all-time low right now.
you're exactly right.
Somebody recently did a survey about that from a university, and like most of us Americans are just like really not happy at all with our government.
No,
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, yeah, and yeah, so I don't think disclosure's coming.
No,
No.
no,
not
no,
unless-
it's not. All the little pages that you get with everything blacked out on it. You know, it's not telling you anything. They're not going to leave anything for you to actually put the pieces together.
Yeah,
No, if we want full on disclosure, we're gonna have to figure out ourselves how to get full disclosure.
and that's there's so much out there too that I'm sure. Just think, okay, for all the stuff that we are aware of and that we are onto, there's probably twice as much stuff that we don't even know about.
Well, see, and you said that, and also as far as technology goes, the government has technology that's 10 times further advanced than anything that we have in the public.
Yeah, it's not 10 years ahead of us. It's like light years ahead of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they have stuff that's so far ahead of us. And the only way we would ever see it is, like I said, if something happened that wiped out everybody and there was a handful of us left and we happened to run across it.
And that a lot of people, the argument for aliens is that for well, supposedly, I mean, I don't necessarily believe all this, but for mankind's existence of not having technology, for the fact that we got all this technology within 100 years, fiber optics and
Right.
you know
Not even 100 years.
right, splitting atoms and everything else. Where did this? I mean, why didn't we do this before on our own?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Well, and basically, there was a jump in technology right after the Roswell incident.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's again, like, now we, at least Bob Lazar, and Bob Lazar was one of the guys that came out. He was supposed to be he reverse engineered stuff for the government, and he supposedly worked at Area 51, and he leaked some information out. And one of the things was that, hey, fiber optics comes from that. We reverse engineer a lot of this stuff, and we were able to figure out things we didn't know before. Now, do I believe that? It's possible. I think we have reverse engineered stuff. I know we have scientists that reverse engineer things.
Well, and they say that's where how am I saying this? Or the chips, the computer chips. That's where we got that from.
Right. Technology we have today and is just amazing, just absolutely amazing. And so again, and on the flip side, you have like, I also believe though that that the secret society that runs the show, I think they've had access. access to. Okay, well, in theory, if they're hybrids between Anunnaki and human, the family bloodlines, they should have had access to all this technology that the Anunnaki had. So,
Right.
part of me says, well, they then maybe they knew about it for a long time, but they just kept it to themselves. And for whatever reason, they finally, within the last 100 years, decided, okay, we can let some of this out. So, is it that, or is it that we, reverse engineered everything? I bet it's a little of both, actually.
I think it's both, actually. And also, as far as the technology that we have, I think that is like once it's old salt per se with the government, like well, hey, we're way above this. We can let a little of this go to the public there, like the cell phones and the whole, every kind of little stuff that came out after that. They're so far advanced from us. They like, it don't matter if we let them have a little bit of this because they can't touch us.
Right. You know,
It's There's so much out there. There's so much that we will never know. I mean, in our lifetime, we'll never know. As far as cryptids and all that goes, and the paranormal field and that goes, and what the government's got and what we don't know about. I mean, we'll never know. Um, I believe that the government has the ability to create the weather.
oh yeah, harp and everything else, absolutely.
And also believe that they have the ability to create holograms. If they wanted us to see a certain thing, they could make us see it.
Yep. In fact, that's one of the theories behind crop or chemtrails, is that they're putting all this aluminum in the
Yeah,
atmosphere so they can either because they're able to
manipulate.
smoke stuff and all that because of the aluminum.
So I think the chemtrail thing is to make us sick, dumb us down, kind of slowly and effectively lower the population.
Soft kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the hologram deal, everybody thinks that the towers was a inside job anyway.
Right.
You can do a hologram of a plane crashing into a building,
Yeah.
and really you're setting off C4 charges and stuff like that, and making it come down.
Right. I mean, the
So,
911 thing is like, as the years go by, we learned so much about it. I mean, it was such an inside job.
Well, look at Building 7. That was purpose.
exactly, and that's my point. It had nothing to do with it, but yet it came down too.
Right. Yeah. Uh, yeah, there's definitely something going on with all that, and I think that they keep a lot of the secrets that would so like we would be talking about something different, if they would just let the public know. But again, holding knowledge is power for them. Um, but I think, like you said, there's an awakening going on,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
people. I mean, okay, I understand that like 40 or like 30 or 40% of the people out there will never get it. They'll never be like us, free thinking, greater good, love and light.
Well, one of the things is
Awakened. I should say.
people have to have an open mind, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to miss so much. You have to be able to look outside the box. If you don't, you're never going to get it.
I can't say this. Our job is boring. Um, doing this. This is there's so many possibilities and ideas as to what's going on.
Everything ties together.
Hey, you know what? I really do believe that. I believe that all of this stuff that we don't understand has all got a intertwining knot somewhere. That it all kind of fits into a certain aspect of reality, so to speak. The government knows about it. We just ain't supposed to know about it.
Right. And crooked they are. You know.
Exactly. And they're going to be that way no matter who's in office. It don't matter who your president is. You know, it's my opinion that the United States military, and don't get me wrong, I support our troops and all that, but the higher ups in the military up there, they're the ones that actually run things.
Yeah.
That's our shadow government for you.
Right. You know. So yeah.
Well, they're not concerned about what our government over here is doing to us. They're concerned with the bigger picture.
Right. Yeah. And I suspect they know what these things are. You know, some of them, like I said, there's probably a little bit of everything. You know, maybe some of these cryptids are in fact demonic manifestations. Maybe
That's
some
possible.
cryptids are interdimensional. Maybe some of them are just regular zoological creatures.
And maybe there is some that were able to
Just evade us.
yeah, evade us without, you know, and there's plenty of places they can do that. You know, you can go into the swamps in Florida, way back in the swamps, nobody's ever even been there.
Right.
No, especially if you're talking about the Everglades.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's
Yeah.
places in there no man has ever set foot.
No, I lived in Florida for 16 years.
So yeah, it'd be very easy.
And every now and then boat rides, and yeah. There's so much wildlife and so much places to hide. If there's a skunk hanging out there, you might never going to find him.
Exactly. I mean, you know, and there's places I don't think man could even get to in there.
No.
But there's creatures that live there.
Oh, yeah. There could be all kinds of things we don't know about that are back there.
I'm sure. You know. And the other thing too is some people believe that some of these cryptids are hiding out in underground cave systems.
Yeah.
And again, that's totally possible. In fact, I believe in the Hollow Earth, or at least the possibility of it. And if the Hollow Earth is true, then absolutely there's. I mean, even if the Hollow Earth isn't true, there are cave
You
systems.
think about these creatures that live in, let's say, for instance, deep in these caves and stuff underground. They're gonna what's the word I'm looking for here? Adjust to their situation. So they're gonna see just as good back in them deep dark areas as you're gonna see outside.
Right. They'll get the ability to camouflage no matter what kind of terrain.
Exactly, yes. And you wouldn't see them, but they'd see you coming from a long way off.
Right. You could walk past like the whole family of them and not even realize it.
Exactly. And that's interesting when you think about it.
And, you know, again, too, it not only applies to land, but it, you know, and air, like we were speaking, but also water.
Right.
You know, just the amount of species every year that we learn about. Hell, every year we're still learning about. Like it seems like every time I go on Facebook, there's a new species of frog. I mean,
Or underwater kind of animals that we've never heard of
Right.
before, or have not been around since the Ice Age, but are now making a comeback.
What is it they call that in the ocean? It's it's a real deep like a kind of like being in a canyon here, but it's like underwater. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you know, a real deep
There could be caverns or underwater caverns.
You know, when you go way, way down in there where we can't get to because we pop like bubbles, there's creatures down there that we've still not ever seen. And, you know, you might have some of your dinosaur leftovers down there.
right. I mean, Megalodon, to me, is still.
Yeah.
Well, look at a good example for Megalodon. The type of whale that it used to eat is currently being spotted again when those things were thought to be extinct.
Exactly.
You remember the fish, what was the name of that fish they caught? And it was from the dinosaur period.
Coelacanth.
Coelacanth, yes. So if you can have that, why can't you have some of the other ones down there?
So I'm saying what was that frogfish with the legs or whatever that looked like human legs? Or not human legs, but it just was creepy looking. And the ocean has got so many I mean, like the diversity of different kinds of creatures. They can change color and even create
Yeah.
light.
Right.
And, you know, like
Well, look at the jellyfish. I mean, it's practically invisible.
Yeah.
right. And yet, you know, some of these jellyfish and squid and stuff have these amazing light things they can do. And
Yeah, and you got your giant squids that are way down there, you know, in the darker depths too. And people didn't believe they were real.
you know, and it's the other thing people got to remember too is that sometimes when evidence is found, it's covered up. And if you look
Yeah.
at Smithsonian, that's the perfect example. Every time they get any kind of dinosaur, or I'm sorry, bones from potential giant humans,
Yeah, they
giants,
disappear.
Nephilim, they disappear, and it's happened over and over.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, government coming in to archaeological digs, or not so much digs, but into the offices where these archaeologists work, where they keep all their stuff. I mean, governments have even come in and taken stuff out. You know,
What is the purpose of, you know, them not wanting people to see the giant skeletons? What do they think it's going to cost? Because you know the Bible itself talks about the giants.
That's exactly why it verifies. For one, it verifies the Bible. You know, whoever's in charge today, whatever God they're worshiping, is not of love and light, and would want nothing. You know, wouldn't support that. Doesn't want like anything. They want people to believe anything else except the truth. If the truth is that there were giants on the earth, you know, and that there were other things going on that aren't going on today, and we know that's true just with dinosaurs, if nothing else.
Right.
You know, if that's the truth, there may be, again, that just may be the tip of this. The Nephilim, for all we know, or the offspring of these giants, they were intelligent, super intelligent. Maybe they exist somewhere else too. Some people say, well, you'll find them in the hollow earth, or you'll find them on the dark side of the moon, or you'll find them, you know, it's like, well, I don't know, but, you know, I do know that people still claim they're out there today, secretly, of course. Like, these people aren't just walking around and, you know, the market square and stuff, but once in a while you get photos that you know, have at least, you know, been tested for CGI and Photoshop. You know, that they say, well,
Yeah.
well, skeletons is the big thing. Is that they haven't covered all the skeleton stuff, and that's why we're even talking about this.
Exactly.
Truth out there. So yes, there are giants.
Well, and another thing I was thinking about, you remember a movie, They Live,
I remember. Yes.
Yeah.
where the guy would put on the glasses and he could see the.
Yeah.
Now, that could be entirely possible.
Sure, the hybrid thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus the technology we have today that we're not privy to.
You know,
Exactly.
wouldn't it be just amazing, though, if you could create like some kind of infrared glasses or some kind of because you would have to be able to see into a depth that we possibly can't do. The government probably can, but we can't.
Right.
Where you could actually tell if you were looking at a hybrid or not.
All right. Well, like here's a good example. Going back to the paranormal for a minute. Black-eyed kids.
Yeah.
What are black-eyed kids? Or they take on human form, but they have black eyes. You know, they could be vampires. They could be alien hybrids. The alien hybrids seem to be the most popular.
Well, and some people say, no, they're demons,
Or they're demons.
you know, but yeah, I think that we were talking about the black eyes earlier, and that's really interesting. Me and Jen in fact, she read the report on our last show. It was
The husband and wife had actually let black-eyed kids into her home.
Oh, okay.
And
that's considered to be the big no-no.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so basically the story goes on that these kids were eventually picked up,
Right.
but the people that picked them up were two tall men in black.
6 feet tall men in black suits, completely in black, and their vehicle was black. Even the windows on the car were black. Everything was black.
No, right. And then the parents waved to these, and they didn't even wave back. These two kids get in the car and they just take off. And while the kids were in the house, the father, his nose started to bleed.
He started getting dizzy. He started
And-
getting dizzy spells and headaches. As a result, afterwards, one of the four cats that reacted that hung out with her in the kitchen
Right, that cat's all.
died.
Didn't they all hiss at the
hemorrhaged.
kids and stuff?
It was just the one cat. The other four hid from him completely. He got like a massive form of cancer, and the doctor had actually asked him if they used tanning beds because the amount of cancer that the man had was so severe. And the woman wouldn't talk about what she's going through. From what we last heard from that report, her and her husband are both dying as a result of letting these kids into their home.
Right. Oh, that's a theory, and they were wondering if it was from the black-eyed kids because that's when certain health problems and stuff started. And then, of course, so it's like, wow, now, usually you don't get the Man in Black tie-in with this, but when I think of black eyes, I think of demonic stuff, but I also think about the black eyelid or the black contacts that the Greys are supposed to wear. That that's why they have them black almond-shaped eyes, and that you can actually peel the contacts off, and it's a dark brown-looking, whatever, giant contact. And I wonder, well, if these are hybrid children, especially alien hybrid, I mean, maybe they're sensitive. Their eyes are sensitive to light too. And
That's possible.
So who knows?
Well, no, I think as far as that goes in the future, if we hear any more reports and people let them in, and they keep having reports of 2 tall men, 6 feet or taller, in black suits with black eyes and completely black vehicles,
Exactly.
that would kind of almost fit in with the whole alien hybrid Men in Black theory.
And with these reports, you also got to look at like who's right. Okay, kind of look at like who's writing the story. Is it just fiction or is it an actual account? Because black-eyed kids is one of them things to where it's in a sense it's a newer phenomenon. It's not an urban legend, not like Slender Man or the like. It's I think that if people had experiences with black-eyed kids in the past, in years past, times past, centuries past, if it was recorded, even if it was documented, I think it would have been documented more as a demonic kind of,
And I've seen. I think it was actually a picture I've seen, but I read the article with it that was showing like a blonde-headed girl coming out of the woods towards a car. She had the black eyes, but she had regular clothes like you do. They were filthy, and but her eyes were just coal black, And they were saying, it was a black-eyed person or whatever, but looked really pale, like not like a spirit, but like pasty.
Kind of like an albino.
Yeah. And they were saying that they thought that she was actually just demonically possessed, and that, of course, could account for the black eyes because I've heard stories that demons' eyes are supposed to look black, or they're either like red as coal or whatever.
Yeah, it depends on what demon you run across, though, because there are different categories of demons. Also, when you're looking at shadow demons, if you're dealing with a paranormal or a possible demonic case, and one of the common things that the clients or the business owners are reporting to you is that this particular thing has red eyes, that usually ties in with the occult.
Yeah.
In rare cases, they'll get glazed over like white eyes, and that's rare. So again, it's like we've been saying here, the common tie with them is black eyes.
And it's not just black-eyed kids anymore. Now it's black-eyed people.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that maybe the kid, here's the thing with the kids is that, and this is another reason why as it's funny because I do believe that there is a demonic tie to some of the alien stuff. I think some of these aliens are um, basically worshiping the same entities as uh, the dark entities.
Right.
They serve them. Maybe not as quote unquote demons, but you know, it's just like the humans in the secret societies that worship um, uh, Malek and all the dark deities. Uh, so the thing is, any entity that's going to come into your house and abduct you, for instance, in the middle of the night when you're sleeping, you're most vulnerable. Uh, yeah, they're not of love and light. They're
No.
not greater good.
No, I'll give you. Okay.
No, I'm just saying that, like, so with the kids, or I'm sorry, with the demonic, there's always this thing of where the demonic needs to be invited into your life.
Right.
It just won't happen upon. I mean, it's got to be invited. Like, you got to open yourself up to it. That kind of thing. So, when you hear the black-eyed children stories, and you get this whole, they want to
They
come.
can't come in unless they're asked.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
once they're invited in, you've invited them into your home. At that point, maybe, again, these things could be in some kind of satanic league with whatever, and that's their mission, just to get that invite so that, something can come back or they can do whatever they have planned on doing to you in the future.
Here's an example. I'm studying demonology still because it's ongoing. It never ends. And I came across an account of a woman that would have, and you can remember this one, for about like a month. Every night she'd be laying in bed and six small grays would come walking into the room. A few seconds later, they'd kind of part ways and a tall gray would come in. So at first, she would get the whole paralysis, can't move. The first time she thought it was really neat because she had thought she had seen alien grays. Well, it got to the point where she was so terrorized, she had no control over what these things would do to her while they were there in the room with her. So she reached out to two demonologists, and he told her it could be something demonic. And he's like, I have a test for you. And she goes, okay. And he goes, next time it happens, he goes, and I know you could do it. He goes, use Jesus' name and see if they react. If they react and they leave, well, then you know it's demonic. If they don't react, then you know it's a genuine ET encounter. So the next night or 2 nights later, she's laying there. Same thing happens. Tall one walks in. The 6 small ones part ways. Walks up to the bed. After a few minutes of feeling paralyzed, she yelled out Jesus' name. And she actually said these things looked at her, looked at each other, hissed, and took off through a wall. The same wall that they would come in.
And that's not the only time in ufology where I've heard this. It does come up once in a while. There is that question: is there a demonic element to some of these alien abductions or alien experiences? And I gotta say, ultimately, they're, like I was saying before, they don't have the people's greater good in interest. They have their own special interests going on. It's not a love and light thing. I was watching a lecture from another ufologist. He was with MUFON. I can't remember where this lecture was, but he was giving different examples because he had noticed in some reports the similar thing. And for him, he did a small lecture on it, and he wasn't even a Christian. But he said that there have been different examples where when people have said Jesus' name out loud, that these things either leave or they react, like they look at each other and they act all nervous and stuff. And I mean, it's not an all the time thing, but this has happened potentially to millions of people. So I would think that there are people out there that any kind of crazy nightmarish kind of thing happening to them, if they're Christians, they're going to call on Jesus' name.
Right.
And again, yes, is the whole. I don't think that the ET abduction thing is just purely demonic. I think there are extraterrestrial or interdimensional entities involved that serve the demonic in their own way. Like they're in league with it. Like that's just the way they roll, kind of thing. So, you know, and some people will use spiritual warfare. So they'll try spiritual warfare when dealing if they feel they're being abducted. I mean, there's really not much you can try. For abduction, I mean, you can go talk to, you know, psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or something. Try to work it out. Yeah, this happened to me and that happened. And I have all these dreams and missing time and scars and but again, like I was saying before, a lot of that is just like recording what's happened after the fact. Well, how can I prevent it from happening again? Well, if there is a tie between the demonic and some of these abduction scenarios, then it would only make sense that spiritual warfare may work. Again, I'm not saying that's what people should. Well, I'm saying explore all possibilities. That's all. And that was just one possibility. That was, like I said, there's every once in a while we'll get the story where when Jesus is and another thing I heard is that just the name of Jesus itself, the way you say it, it's got a higher vibrational it's got a higher vibration than almost any other word we can say. Like there's something about the word Jesus that just it's a special word, even according to people who study sound. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's got a higher vibrational frequency.
So yeah, I would think that, and it doesn't just, again, like if you don't believe in Jesus, whatever your God's name is, I would, definitely, if you can say its name, I would recommend trying that, just like, them demonologists did.
Right, like that woman did in her story, and after that, she never had any more visitations from these things.
And if it continues to happen, then at least you tried something. You didn't just sit there helpless. I mean, part of it's like, and this too, when we're dealing with families and clients and cases, and they have these paranormal things that are troubling them, a lot of it's just self-empowerment. Trying to give them tools to empower themselves.
Exactly. But couldn't it also be where not necessarily the name that you pronounce, but it's the tone of your voice or your, where you give them the idea that, hey, look, I'm not afraid of you. You need to back off.
Right, like I have God on my side, kind of thing.
Exactly. But whether you believe in God or not, what I'm saying is, if you're stern and you let them know, hey, look, I'm not going to take your crap.
Right. Would there be any kind of like backlash or negative reaction or not? I think if you have the ability to stand up to them, then definitely.
Because a lot, and I've heard this a lot in the paranormal field over the years. They feed off of your fear.
Right.
And if you're not afraid of them, you kind of turn the tables a little bit.
Right. And we see, and that's like, we see that with like shadow people too. And you're right, because shadow people are notorious for that.
Right. They come on and you're scared and you're hovering over in your little corner and everything, but if if you're like right in their face, like, you need to get on out of here. I ain't got time for you. They have a different look at things. They react differently.
Right. Yeah. And because, I agree too. It's just like standing up to a bully in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what they are in a way. They're just like demonic bullies.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not there in the middle of the night when you're at your most vulnerable to be your friend.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah.
But then as far as
if you're not afraid of them, they're like, well, maybe I need to find somebody else. This one here ain't weak enough.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. I think that I'm going to make a point to every time I come across case, abduction case, where the word Jesus is implied, used, where there's a noticeable difference, I'm going to save them reports because, just to get an idea of actually how many are out there. It's just that, this sometimes, it's funny because, Jenny is a demonologist and I'm a ufologist. So a lot of times the question is, well, are they interconnected? It's like, well, they seem to have the same kind of agenda a lot,
Right.
They're both harassing people. They're both troubling people. They're both, mentally and sometimes physically hurting people.
Right. And sometimes in either cases, they don't have the people that were possessed or abducted will have literally no memory of it.
Right. And
Yeah, I agree.
But then again, it's with, the whole demonic activity. People just don't end up with demonic infestations or any type of demonic activity whatsoever. The person usually has had something, they've opened a door maybe and invited this thing in. It could be through generational curse.
Right.
It could be through an object. People could use a Ouija board. It doesn't matter. These things just don't hang around anybody.
Well,
No.
now I have heard cases where they hang around like a certain place, and if you happen to, go there and you come across them, you run the risk if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, right, yeah.
No.
You can get that in any public places. You can even get that on investigations and not realize it until you leave and it follows you home.
Yeah.
That's why these things are so good at masking themselves. If they don't want to be picked up with your equipment, guess what? You're not going to pick them up.
Exactly. And if they don't want you to see them, they're not going to show up.
Right.
Right.
If they don't want to answer your questions, you ain't going to get an EVP. I mean, as simple as that.
Right. That's like you can go to Bobby Mackey's, say he has a demonic attachment, and you could leave Bobby Mackey's, and this thing will just follow you home.
You had to bring up Bobby Mackey's. Now I got to do my Zach impression.
Okay.
If this is the port of hell, come up and get me.
I like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Jailbait.
I was just using that as an example. You can pick this thing up through objects, places, other people. Other people can have these attachments and not be aware of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've heard of people carrying around these attachments for years. And people are wondering, why are they always down and depressed and gloomy and, are they the opposite? They're angry and they're, stuff like that because they've got something attached to them,
Right. And then you have the other scary part of it where you can have people that have kids and are into Satanism and they practice black masses and, it could be satanic ritual abuse, or they could assign what they would consider demonic guardians to their kids. So, as far as coming up on any kind of ways to picking up demonic attachments, there's all kinds of ways. There's the list is endless.
Yeah. It's amazing how some people that go out and I won't say they claim to be paranormal investigators, but they're enthusiasts and they do it for a hobby and they don't realize the danger they put themselves in.
Right.
And that's also how you get these cases where, like the mansion that got burned down.
Oh.
Going in there claiming to be ghost hunters and everything. I won't even say what they were, but they sure heck weren't ghost hunters.
Oh, we know what you're talking about. Everybody heard about it. And those kind of people, they're that's one of my main pet peeves is you have these people that go out there and they make it a hobby. And they'll go and they'll trespass and they'll hurt themselves, and then they'll turn around and sue the property owners because they hurt themselves, or they'll burn places down.
Yeah,
and
or if they don't burn it down, they destruct it in other ways. I mean,
and then they're
that's why I don't like the term ghost hunter. I would rather be called an investigator and a researcher. I don't just hunt ghosts. I don't go out for the thrill of just hunting ghosts. You know.
Right. There is a difference.
Right. And then, these people reflect off the rest of us in this field. And so they make
Exactly.
it unpleasant for us, people like us who don't do what they do.
Well, if you like that mansion that burned, I would have loved to went there. I'd heard about it way before that happened. I always wanted to go there.
Oh my God, me too. That was on my bucket list of places
But
to
if
go.
they hadn't have burned it down, but just destructed it enough, the people are going to say, "Well, look, I'm not letting nobody else in here because look what these idiots come in here and did."
Yep. And that makes it harder. And now teams are starting to get insurance and
Yeah, and
know,
I mean, high dollar insurance at that.
right.
Here's a good example. Last year, the Velisca Axe House. And they were doing tours there, and I don't remember if the guy claims he was an investigator or a person on the tour, but he actually claimed that he got stabbed with a knife while he was there.
He stabbed himself.
Well, it turns out that
Oh yeah, I remember that.
no, he stabbed himself and then blamed it
Yeah.
on the ghost of the one who murdered all those people.
Exactly, so he could get money out of it. I remember that. Yeah.
And everyone was saying, well, maybe something took over his body and made him stab himself. So,
Right.
Yeah.
we got tied into this a little bit because the guy, although he was with some other paranormal team, he resides in Rhinelander, Wisconsin.
He's in our town.
That's the same town we're based out of. So people started calling us like news reporters and stuff from around like America, wanting to know if he was part of our paranormal society and if we knew him and what we thought about him. It's like, hey, I never met the guy before. I don't even, just because he lives in town, I'm sorry he's not with us. We weren't there, and
Yeah, that
but it was
was-
just weird how they kind of like, because it, it's just a coincidence.
Oh, they came out of the woodwork. I thought that was funny though, because as soon as I said Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and they found us, automatically they thought that we were associated with them in any way.
Yeah, I remember when that first came out, it was a big to do, and I thought, what? Who does this idiot think he's fooling?
Right.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
Now, there's been cases where, and this is, it's not a realistic thing, okay? He had an actual knife and he stabbed himself and the real blood and the whole 9 yards. But there has been cases where people have felt like they have been, attacked with weapons of a ghostly nature. Like, let's just say the axe murder guy was there and he had his axe and he whacked you. You ain't going to see the axe and you ain't going to see the gash, but you're going to feel the pain.
Right.
That is true though. You do have your share of ghosts that will attack you, and it's kind of like you said earlier, as in life, so in death. So if you are like an evil, negative person bent on hurting others or taking lives, then you're still going to be the same way in the after.
Exactly. I always said if you were, an a-hole in life, you're going to be an a-hole afterwards.
Right.
I remember hearing of a case where somebody in a place where a reported shooting took place, actually heard the gunshot and felt the bullet.
Okay.
You didn't see a physical bullet hole or anything, but he felt the bullet enter his body.
Right.
And he reacted like he would have if he'd have been shot.
The psychic impression that just hit him.
Right.
Sure.
And that would be one creepy experience. Okay, I ain't never had nothing like that happen, but also I've never run into a demonic yet, so I guess I've been lucky on both sides of that fence. But
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had my run-ins with the demonic realm since I can remember, and more so since I've become a demonologist.
well, my team founders run into one threw him actually 15 foot out a door into a yard, but I've never run into one myself.
I did a home case when I lived in Florida. This was like years ago now. I did a walkthrough. And I got there, and when I got there, I walked the whole lower level. And as I was going upstairs to the second level, there was 2 sets of steps. There's like 4 steps you walk up. There's like a big flat step, and then you turn and walk up. Well, I actually saw one of these things, but it was in kind of like a black mass. it didn't have a human shape. And this thing literally rushed at me, picked me up, threw me from the steps uh, across the room, right against the wall. So
I guess that's basically what he claims that got, because he didn't say he actually saw like a human shape.
yeah,
He just says all he knows is he went to shut the door because they were leaving, and he went back because they didn't shut the door on the way out. And when he got to the door, something lifted him up and just threw him literally through the air, and he landed about 15 foot out in the yard.
Yeah, and they say that, when a manifestation can become that violent, like where it's the strength to pick up somebody and throw
it's
them.
like a rag doll.
Right. A lot of demonologists and paralogians feel that that's just not your regular ghost doing that.
Right.
Demons have that kind of power,
Right.
that kind of strength. Like your typical ghost may be able to move small objects or maybe e-port something once in a while.
Right, but they definitely don't have the strength to
Right.
pick people up.
They're not going to be throwing furniture necessarily, or
Right.
like.
And then as far as demons go, they have a ranking system. So they kind of work like the military. And you have the lower ranking ones, which are just pretty much stupid.
Oh.
They'll just come into situations and check it out and see how it could work to the advantage of the higher up ones. And then it'll usually give them the okay to go in.
Okay, you guys, we've been on about 2 hours. We got a couple of minutes left. If you guys want to give some links out to people, that'd be cool. Tell them how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank anybody who is listening from the page Paracryptozoology. I know we got into some other stuff as well, but again, this is not just cryptozoology, but there's paranormal, things too. And if in paracryptozoology, you got to explore every possible paranormal scenario that we've come across. So, I just wanted to say that. So the first link I want to share is the like page Paracryptozoology. We made that page just for that for the science, and again, I don't get to post on there, and she doesn't get to post on there as much as we would like to, just because we're involved in so many other things. Also, the radio show and the whole Paranormal Society, and Jenny does readings during the day.
Right.
But anytime I come across something that I feel applies to that, it goes on that page. So please check that out. Also, otherwise, our main pages is Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. You can find that on Facebook, and when you go to the page, it's not set up yet, but I'm thinking hopefully by next week, we'll have the website set up so you can just click and go right to the website too. But we don't have a website link for you right now. We're still doing stuff with it. But so we have that. That's a Facebook like page, by the way. And then there's Jenny's.
Right, Jennifer Scelsi, psychic medium, demonologist, also on Facebook. Parasociology,
Yep.
also on Facebook. CSI Paranormal's one Paranormal Family Worldwide group. We also have a CSI Paranormal like page.
And there's also the clubhouse, and
Yes.
and by the way, I'm also the director for Tennessee for CSI.
Right, I was just going to say, aren't you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But Half Past Dead Paranormal Investigations Facebook. You can find me on there. I like to, the unity thing is awesome. It's sad to say that in a lot of cases it don't work, but in a lot of cases it does.
Yeah.
It all depends on the what's the word I'm looking for here? A person's view. If they think they know everything, they're not going to be too much willing to share. But if they're like most of us who are learning every day, then yeah, what better way to learn than to work together? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There was one more thing I want to.
We also have Lake Monstrosities, which is a group page.
Right.
We have Paraversal Universe Radio, Paraversal Universe Archives, Paraversal Universe Paratunes.
Yes.
And you can find our society at paranormalsocieties.com.
Awesome.
And one more thing too, on the page, the paracryptozoology page, when we first started it, we had the idea was to have not just me on as a ufologist and paranormal historian and her as a demonologist, but we had a couple cryptozoologists, or I should say a husband and wife that had joined us. But like you said, it doesn't always work out sometimes, the unity thing and everything. And so if there's any cryptozoologists, any cryptid researchers out there who are into paracryptozoology and think they can contribute in a positive way to the page, just let us know, because we would eventually like to have a cryptozoologist as an admin to cover the crypto side of it, just like, we're there to look at the other angles and the parasite of it. So if there's anyone out there that, again, I'm just putting that out there. Because
Well, it's really easy to put, when you think about it, to put the paranormal and the cryptids together in a way, because anything outside the box to me is considered paranormal. Anything that we don't understand or does not act as the norm,
right.
to me is considered like paranormal. You can consider Bigfoot paranormal in a way because of he's so elusive, or he just disappears.
Right.
Either or. So it fits. UFOs and ufology fits. Matter of fact, when you was talking about paracryptozoology, the thought came to me: why couldn't you have para-ufology?
Well, that was brought up, and the reason is because in ufology we accept the fact that some aliens have supernatural powers or abilities that we don't possess. That's just accepted. In cryptozoology, many of the old scholars refuse to accept that notion that a living creature may have abilities that humans don't have.
Right.
So,
Well, if you had, for instance, though, UFOs or whatever, which is not necessarily saying an alien, I'm just saying UFOs. What if you have a parallel universe and you have another us over there that have more technology than we have? Could they not come through that thing over here with a ship?
sure.
See what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Some people say, well, the ufology thing is it people coming from the past, like us in the future, trying to come back. And the reason we've evolved to the point where we look like these grays now with the little slits and the big eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
Because we have all these mental powers now and we don't need to eat anymore. I don't know.
Well, I have some mental, I don't know about powers. But no, I'm just saying, why couldn't you have something like that? Why couldn't they just cross,
Yeah.
From one multiverse to another? Not necessarily be alien in nature, but be like us in the future, us in the past, or us in another universe.
Right. And the whole idea with the string theory and all the parallel universes, that if that is correct, there are so many, not only is the universe such a big place where anything's possible, but there's many universes.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's my point. Anyway, we really need to shut this down, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Hey, thanks, Roger.
Yes.
It was an awesome show. We talked about everything, but well, we probably talked about that too. But that's what makes things interesting. You can start out with a topic, but you can go into so many because they all kind of connect.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Studying all these different fields of research in the unknown, because there's 6 categories in the unknown. And there's
and all the guys in the chat room said to tell y'all thanks. It was a great show. They loved it.
Thank you. We appreciate everybody in chat out there for listening.
Yes, and thank you, Roger, for be willing to tackle the topic of paracryptozoology.
It's interesting.
Awesome.
you know, and like I said, I'd never heard of it, but when you put it all together, it's all kind of connected.
Yeah.
So, you know, it makes it very interesting, actually.
The
And
per-
I would love to have you guys come back later on in the future here, and I'm sure you'll have some new information on this field and or topics in the other areas that, you know, we haven't talked about yet. But you
Absolutely.
guys are awesome. I'd love to have you come back.
Absolutely. And we'd like to have you on our show sometime too.
Yes,
I
definitely.
would be happy to do that. Just give me a yell and set something up for me.
Gotcha.
Not Monday, not Friday.
Well, shoot, our show's on.
Our
Friday.
show's on Friday.
Oh, well then, well, see, I do the ghostly stories at 7.
Oh, yeah.
It's only an hour. It runs from 7 to 8.
Yeah, and that's when our radio show starts at 7.
Oh man, that's great.
Well, maybe we could do something where we could bring you on the second hour or something.
Hey, that'd be cool.
Right.
Because we want to do a couple roundtable kind of things.
Yeah. Oh, I love roundtables.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. that'd be cool.
Roundtables are good because they're kind of like what we just did. Basically, you can go into all kind of different things. You know, you got different people with different ideas.
Right. And
That makes it awesome. Okay, you guys have a good night. Everybody out there in the chat room, anybody that's still there, I really appreciate you guys. Kevin, Jennifer, y'all were awesome. Everybody out there listening that wasn't in the chat room, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We will see y'all next week when I have my good buddy Kenny Addison coming on from Lights Out Paranormal. And we're going to have a good old time once again.
Mhm. And thank you so much for having us on. It was a blast.
Oh, I loved it, you guys. Y'all were awesome. All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
See you guys.